He looked right through me. That is the part I keep coming back to. Not the moment I understood what had happened. Not the moment my daughter's face changed when she saw me standing at the edge of the garden. Not even the moment the boy I had held in a hospital room 23 years ago walked down the aisle of his own wedding and passed within 4 feet of me, without a single flicker of recognition. The part I keep coming back to is what his eyes did. Nothing. Not a double take, not a hesitation, not the micro pause of someone who is looking at a face that reminds them of something they cannot quite place. Nothing. He looked at the row of chairs, at the flowers on the arch, at the guests arranged around the garden, and his eyes moved across my face the way eyes move across a stranger's face. Because to him, I was a stranger. Because to him, I was a stranger. Because to him, I was not a woman he had never met. I was a woman who did not exist. Because his mother, my daughter, had told him I was dead. My name is Roberta Ellison, and I am 67 years old, and I am going to tell you everything. I am going to tell you the before, which was a family, and the during, which was a silence I did not fully understand, and the after, which began at a wedding on a Saturday afternoon in June when a 23-year-old young man in a gray suit walked past me and did not know my face. But before I do, I need you here for the whole of it. Subscribe right now if you are not already. This story does not end where you think it ends, and I need you to be here when we get to the part that changed everything. Subscribe, hit the bell, and stay with me. Because the wedding was only the beginning of what I found out. Let me take you back to where this started. My daughter's name is Patricia. She is 44 years old, and she has her father's eyes and my stubbornness and a particular way of holding her jaw when she has made a decision that I recognized in her at 3 years old and have never stopped recognizing since. I raised Patricia alone from the time she was 7, when her father, my husband Gerald, died of a heart attack on a Wednesday morning in the parking lot of the hardware store he had owned for 11 years. He was 38 years old. Patricia was 7. Her brother Marcus was 4. I was 36 and I had 2 children and a small business and a mortgage, and the specific terror of a woman who has just understood that the life she built with another person now belongs entirely to her to carry. I carried it. I want to say that plainly and without drama, because it is simply what happened. I worked the hardware store for 6 more years and then sold it when the big chain opened 2 miles away and used the money to retrain as a bookkeeper and built a practice that I ran out of the spare room of our house until both children were through college and I was 52 years old and finally, for the first time in my adult life, living a life that had some space in it. I tell you all of this because the before matters. Because the before was real and it was ours, Patricia's and mine, and because what she did later did not erase it, though I spent a long time wondering if it was supposed to. Patricia married a man named Caleb Whitmore when she was 26. I liked Caleb. He was quiet and steady, and he looked at my daughter the way Gerald had looked at me, with the particular attention of a man who has found the specific person he was looking for and knows it. They had 2 children. Ryan, who is the young man in the gray suit at the wedding, and Lily, who is 20, and who I will tell you about in a moment because Lily is the reason I know everything I know and the reason I was standing in that garden at all. For the first years of Patricia and Caleb's marriage, things were good. I was the grandmother who came on Sundays. I was the one who taught Ryan to play checkers and who read to Lily every time I visited and who brought the specific cookies they both requested and who stayed late enough to put them to bed on the nights Patricia and Caleb went out. I was present. I was the grandmother I had always intended to be, had always imagined being, had held in my mind through all the hard years of raising Patricia and Marcus alone as the version of the future I was working toward. A family, a table with children at it, a continuation. The distance started when Ryan was 11 and Lily was 8. I want to be careful about how I describe this, because I have had a great deal of time to examine it, and I believe I understand it now in ways I did not understand it then, and the understanding changes the shape of what I say about it. Patricia and I had a disagreement, not a screaming fight, not a dramatic rupture, not the kind of event that you can point to afterward and say that is the thing, that is the moment the bridge broke. A disagreement. About money. I had some savings, not a great deal, but enough accumulated over the years of the bookkeeping practice, and Patricia had asked me to lend her and Caleb a significant amount for a down payment on a larger house. I said no, not because I did not love her, because I had looked at their finances, which Patricia had shown me while asking, and I could see that the larger house would stretch them in ways that worried me, that the payment would consume too large a portion of Caleb's salary, that the margin for error was too thin, that one bad month could tip them into a position they would not easily recover from. I said no because I loved her. I said it badly. I said it with the particular directness that has been both my greatest strength and my most persistent liability, the directness I got from my own mother and passed directly to Patricia, the directness that does not soften its delivery because it trusts that the person receiving it is capable of handling truth without decoration. Patricia was capable of handling truth. She was not capable that day of handling the specific truth that her mother did not believe her financial judgment was sound. She hung up the phone and she did not call back for 3 weeks. When she called back, she was measured and polite in the specific way that Patricia is measured and polite when she is managing something she has not resolved. We did not discuss the money again. We did not discuss what the money had meant. We moved forward in the careful way of two people who have agreed, without saying so, to place something fragile between them and not jostle it. For a while this worked, then it did not. The visits became less frequent. Monthly became every 6 weeks, became every 2 months, became the specific kind of contact that is maintained out of obligation rather than desire, the holiday calls, the birthday acknowledgments, the photographs of the children at milestones that arrive in a text message with a caption and no invitation to participate in the milestone itself. I watched Ryan's school play through a video, Patricia texted me. I watched Lily's dance recital through a video, Patricia texted me. I was not there. I kept showing up. I want to be clear about that. I kept calling. I kept asking to visit. I kept sending cards and small gifts and the cookies they had liked when they were small. And I kept arriving at family events when I was invited to them, which became less often. And I kept telling myself that the distance was a season and that seasons change. Then Patricia stopped answering my calls. Not immediately, not all at once. The way the calls had gotten less frequent, the answering got less reliable. And then the answering became occasional, and then the occasional became rare, and then the rare became a voicemail I left every 2 weeks that was not returned. I wrote letters. I have always believed in letters. I wrote Patricia 4 letters in the year she stopped answering her phone. Clear, honest, not accusatory. Letters that said I do not understand what has happened between us, and I would like to. Letters that said I love you, and I love your children, and I am here. Letters that said I know I hurt you, and I would like to understand how so that I can understand what repair looks like. The letters were not returned. They were also not answered. I drove to her house twice. The first time, she came to the door and told me it was not a good time and that she would call me. She did not call me. She did not call me. The second time, the car was in the driveway, but no one answered the door. I stood on the porch of my daughter's house for 10 minutes. I could hear the television inside. I could hear, I thought, Lily's voice somewhere near the back of the house. I stood on that porch and I thought about the woman who had stood on another porch 31 years earlier, with 2 children inside and a mortgage and a terror she did not have time to fully feel. And I understood something about the way that love does not protect you from loss. Not even the love. That is entirely one-directional, not even the love you have been giving without reservation for 44 years. I drove home. That was 7 years ago. 7 years of silence. 7 years of the particular grief that does not have an official name. The grief of an estrangement. The grief of a relationship that is not ended in the way that relationships end when someone dies, but has instead gone somewhere inaccessible, somewhere you cannot follow, somewhere that exists in parallel to your own life without intersecting it. I know there are people watching this who know that grief. If you are one of them, stay with me. Because what I am about to tell you is the part that changes everything, and I need you to be here for it. My son Marcus had stayed close. Marcus, who is 41, who lives in the same city as Patricia, and who had navigated the divide between us with the specific, careful diplomacy of a person who loves 2 people who are not speaking and refuses to be asked to choose between them. Marcus never told me what Patricia was saying about me. I understand why now. He was protecting me. He was also protecting his relationship with his sister. And he was, I think, hoping that the situation would resolve before he had to choose between the protection and the truth. It did not resolve. And so it was not Marcus who told me. It was Lily. Lily, who is 20 years old and who has her grandmother's directness and the specific way that traits sometimes skip a generation and reappear with full force in the generation after. Lily, who found me. She found me through Marcus. She had gone to Marcus 6 months before the wedding because she had questions that her mother was not answering, and she had a feeling, she told me later, a feeling that had been growing since she was 15 or 16, that the story she had been told was not the full story. The story she had been told was this. Her grandmother, Roberta Ellison, had died when Lily was 8 and Ryan was 11. A sudden illness. Very peaceful. She had loved them very much. Patricia had told them this. She had told them this at the kitchen table on a Sunday evening in October 11 years ago when Lily was 8 and Ryan was 11. She had told them their grandmother was gone. She had held their hands. She had cried, which had made it real to them in the way that children take their emotional cues from the adults in the room. They had mourned me. Ryan was 11 years old, and he mourned his grandmother. Lily was 8 years old, and she mourned her grandmother. Patricia had told them I was dead, and they had mourned me, and they had grown up in a world that did not contain me because I was not in it anymore. Because I was dead. I need to stop here and sit inside that for a moment because I do not want to move past it too quickly. I need you to understand what I am describing. My daughter looked at her children, her 8-year-old daughter and her 11-year-old son, and she told them their grandmother was dead. She said it at the kitchen table on a Sunday evening. She held their hands. She cried. She gave them a story about an illness that was peaceful. She built a grave that I did not know existed, and for 11 years, I was in it. I was 60 years old and in good health and living in the same city, booking my clients' quarterly taxes in the spare room of my house, and I was dead to my grandchildren for 11 years. I found this out on a Tuesday afternoon in December, 7 months before Ryan's wedding, when Lily called my number, which she had gotten from Marcus, and asked, in a voice that was trying very hard to be steady, whether she could come and see me. I said yes before she finished the sentence. She came the following Saturday. She stood on my doorstep and she looked at me for a long moment, and I looked at her and I thought about the last time I had seen her, which was a birthday party when she was 9, 1 year after the Sunday evening at the kitchen table when her mother had told her I was gone. She had been 9 and gap-toothed and wearing a dress with butterflies on it. She was 20 now, and she had her father's height and her mother's jaw and my eyes, which I had not known until I was standing in my own doorway looking at them. She said, "Are you my grandmother?" I said, "I am." She walked inside and she sat at my kitchen table and she told me everything. She told me about the Sunday evening. She told me about the years of growing up without a grandmother on her mother's side, about the questions she had asked that were answered with the gentle deflection of someone who does not want to revisit a grief. She told me about the Christmas when she was 15 and she had found, in her mother's closet while looking for a wrapped gift, a box. Inside the box were photographs. Photographs of a woman she did not recognize. A woman holding a baby she later understood was her mother. A woman at a kitchen table with 2 children she later understood were her uncle Marcus and her mother Patricia at ages she had never seen them. A woman at a hospital bedside with a newborn she later understood was Ryan. She said she had looked at those photographs for a long time, and she had put them back, and she had not said anything because she was 15, and the story she had been given was that her grandmother was dead, and you do not argue with death when you are 15, and your mother is still in the room. She told me about the feeling that had grown since then, the specific feeling of a story with edges that did not quite match up, the way that some part of her had never fully accepted the version she had been given without knowing what the alternative was. She told me about going to Marcus. She told me about what Marcus had told her, which was not everything, but was enough, which was that her grandmother was alive and that the situation was complicated and that he thought Lily had the right to know. She told me all of this at my kitchen table with a steadiness that broke my heart a little more with every sentence because it was the steadiness of someone who has been preparing for a hard conversation and has decided to see it through, and that preparation had been going on for a very long time. When she finished, I was quiet for a moment. Then I said, "Lily." She looked at me. I said, "I have been trying to reach your mother for 7 years." She said, "I know." I said, "I wrote letters." She said, "I believe you." I said, "I drove to the house." She said, "I know." I said, "I want to understand why she did this, and I cannot." Lily was quiet. Then she said, "I don't think she planned it." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "I think she told us you were dead because she needed it to be true and because she thought it was the cleanest way." I thought about that for a long time. The cleanest way. The cleanest way to remove a person from a life you have decided you do not want them in is to tell the people in that life that the person is gone. Not estranged, not absent. Gone. Because estranged can be fixed. Absent can be explained. Dead cannot be argued with. Dead is permanent and beyond question, and it closes the door that the children might otherwise have spent years trying to open. My daughter had not wanted the door to be openable, so she had sealed it. Lily and I sat at that kitchen table for 3 hours. I showed her photographs. I showed her the photographs I had kept of Patricia as a child, of the hardware store, of Gerald, of the years that preceded her by exactly the amount of time it took for Patricia to decide I was dead. Lily held each photograph carefully, the way you handle something you have been looking for without knowing you were looking for it. She asked me what I was like as a mother. I told her the truth, which was that I was good at the practical and less good at the soft. That I had loved Patricia fiercely and shown it in ways that were sometimes harder to receive than intended. That I had made the mistake with the money and the delivery, and that I believed, standing here, 11 years after the kitchen table Sunday, that the money had not been the reason, but had been the excuse. Lily said, "I think she was always afraid of you." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Not afraid like scared, afraid like you were the person whose opinion she couldn't stop caring about, and the only way to stop caring about it was to make you not exist." I sat with that. I am still sitting with it, because I think Lily, who is 20 years old and has never studied psychology but has been quietly reading her family for her entire life, is right. And I think the rightness of it does not make what Patricia did acceptable. And I think both of those things are true, and I have been learning to hold them simultaneously ever since. Ryan's wedding was in June. Lily had been in contact with me for 7 months by then. We met for coffee every few weeks. We talked on the phone. I learned who she was, and she learned who I was, and the learning was careful and a little tentative, the way learning always is when it comes this late and carries this much weight. She told me Ryan did not know. She had not told him, not because she was protecting Patricia, though she was also protecting Patricia in the way that children perpetually protect their parents from consequences. Those children understand the parents have earned, but because she had not yet figured out how to say it. Because saying it meant dismantling something Ryan had been living inside for 11 years. Because Ryan had been 11 when Patricia told him his grandmother was dead and he had believed it, because he was 11 and his mother was crying and you believe your mother when she cries. He was 23 now and getting married, and he was about to walk down an aisle in a garden, and somewhere in that garden was the woman his mother had buried alive. Lily told me about the wedding 2 weeks before it happened. She said, "I think you should come." I said, "Lily?" She said, "I know it's complicated." I said, "Your mother will be there." She said, "Yes." I said, "Your mother believes I am not a part of this family." Lily said, "You are a part of this family." She said it with the specific certainty of a 20-year-old who has decided something and is not going to be talked out of it, with the jaw-set quality that I recognized from Patricia and from myself and from a line of women going back further than I can trace who made up their minds and meant it. I thought about it for a full week. I want to be honest about that deliberation because I think it matters. I was not trying to make a scene. I was not trying to expose Patricia in front of her son's wedding guests. I was not trying to win something. I was trying to decide whether my presence at a wedding where I was not invited by the mother of the groom was an act of love or an act of claim, and the difference between those two things felt important, and I needed to be sure which one it was before I got in a car. I decided it was love. Lily wanted me there. Lily had found me and sat at my kitchen table and held my photographs and asked me what I was like as a mother. Lily was family. And if I had learned anything from 7 years of silence and 11 years of being dead to people I loved, it was that love without presence is a theory, and I had been a theory long enough. I went. I sat in the last row on the far side, outside Lily's immediate family section, in the place she had arranged for me, visible but not prominent, there but not claiming the front. I wore a blue dress I had bought specifically because Patricia's favorite color has been blue since she was 4 years old. I do not know exactly why I chose that. I think I needed something from my real life in that garden, some proof to myself that I had not invented the 44 years before this one. The ceremony began at 4 in the afternoon. The sun was at the angle that June afternoon sun reaches in the south, warm and honeyed, and the specific color of a day you will remember. Lily walked in the bridal party. She saw me from the aisle and she did not change her expression, not because she was not feeling something. I could see that she was feeling something, but because she had prepared herself and she was keeping it together, and I loved her for that in a way I did not yet have full language for. Then the groom's entrance. Ryan. I had not seen him since he was 11 years old. He was 23 now, and tall in the way his father Caleb was tall, and he had the specific brightness of a young man on the day of his wedding, the particular aliveness of someone for whom the present moment is exactly as large as the rest of their life. He walked down the aisle with Caleb on one side. He passed my row, 4 feet away. His eyes moved across the assembled guests and crossed my face and moved on. Nothing. No recognition. No hesitation. I was a stranger in the last row. I was a woman in the blue dress at a wedding. I was someone he had never met. I was dead. The ceremony lasted 32 minutes. I counted because I needed to be counting something. The vows were personal, and the young woman Ryan married, whose name I will not include here because she did not choose to be part of the story, and she deserves her privacy on her wedding day, was clearly someone who loved him clearly and well, and I found myself grateful for her in a way that surprised me. I was glad he had found someone who loved him clearly and well, even from the last row of a garden where I did not officially exist. I want to tell you about the moment Patricia saw me. She was standing near the arch after the ceremony, talking to a woman I did not recognize, and I was waiting, not approaching, just standing at the edge of the garden with Lily beside me. And Patricia turned, and her eyes found me, and I watched her face do something I have never seen it do before, not in 44 years. It went completely still. Not the stillness of calm, the stillness of a person whose body has stopped processing input because the input is not compatible with the story they have been running. She stared at me for 4 seconds. Then she looked at Lily. Then she looked at me again. And I watched the stillness break apart into something else. Not anger, not guilt, something older than either. Something that looked like a person standing at a door they locked 11 years ago, discovering that the door has been opened from the other side. She walked toward me. Not fast. The deliberate walk of someone who is deciding what they are going to do with each step as they take it. She stopped in front of me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The garden continued around us. Guests talking, glasses clinking, the particular murmur of a wedding reception settling into itself. She said, "How are you here?" I said, "Lily." She looked at her daughter. Lily said, "Mom." She said it the way Lily says everything, directly and without preamble. She said, "I went looking." Patricia said nothing. I said, "Patricia." She looked at me. I said, "I am not here to ruin your son's wedding." I said, "I am here because your daughter invited me and because I have been trying to reach you for 7 years and because I was not willing to be dead anymore." Something in her face moved. She said, "You shouldn't have come." I said, "Probably not." I said, "But I did." I said, "And now you and I are standing in a garden and your son is 23 feet away and he does not know I exist. And at some point today or tomorrow or next week that is going to change because Lily knows. And Lily is not going to carry this alone anymore." Patricia's jaw was set the way her jaw sets. She said, "This is my family." I said, "I know it is." I said, "I am also your family." I said, "I have always been your family." I said, "And whatever happened between us, whatever I did that made you need to do this, you took something from those children that was not yours to take." She said nothing. I said, "Ryan did not choose this estrangement." I said, Lily did not choose it, estrangement. I said, Lily did not choose it. I said, they were 8 and 11 years old and they loved their grandmother, and you told them she was dead, and you took that from them without asking them and without asking me. And I need you to understand that even if everything else between us is unresolvable, that part was wrong. Patricia's eyes were wet, not crying. The specific quality of eyes that are holding something they will not release in a public space. She said, I know. She said it quietly, without defense, without the jaw set. Just 2 words with 11 years and something that might have been a beginning underneath them. She said, I know it was wrong. She said, I have known for a long time. I want to tell you what happened after that because I think people expect that a confrontation like this one resolves cleanly and dramatically in the moment. And the truth is that nothing resolved in the garden. Nothing resolved in the garden because the garden was Ryan's wedding, and neither of us was willing to make Ryan's wedding into something other than what it was supposed to be. We stepped away from the crowd. We stood near the gate at the edge of the property, just the 2 of us, for 8 minutes. I know it was 8 minutes because I watched the time on my phone because I needed to know how long we had before the reception began, and I did not want to run out of time in the middle of something. She told me some of it, not all of it. She told me that after the money conversation, she had decided she needed distance. She said the way I had said no had felt, to her, like a verdict, like a judgment of her capability as an adult, as a mother, as the person managing her own life. She said she had heard it as me saying she was not capable. She said that hearing, right or wrong, had broken something in her that she had not known was fragile. I said, I was trying to protect you. She said, I know that now. She said, I did not know it then. She said, what I knew then was that I needed to not be your daughter for a while. And the only way I could figure out how to do that was to make you not exist. I said, you made me not exist to your children. She said, yes. She said it without hiding from it. I said, that was not a thing you had the right to do. She said, no. She said it was not. I said, I want to meet Ryan. She looked at me. I said, not today. I said, today is his wedding and this is not the story of his wedding. I said, but soon. She was quiet. Then she said, he is going to be angry. I said, probably. She said, he is going to feel like his whole childhood was a lie. I said, parts of it were. She closed her eyes. I said, Patricia. She opened them. I said, I am 67 years old. I said, I have been your mother for 67 years and I have been dead to my grandchildren for 11 of them and I am done being dead. I said, you can tell Ryan or I can tell Ryan, but someone is going to tell Ryan and I would rather it be you. She said nothing for a long moment. The reception was beginning behind us. Music was starting, the specific gentle instrumental of a wedding reception finding its early rhythm. She said, give me a week. I said, you have a week. She said, Roberta. She has not called me by my name in 11 years. She has not called me anything in 11 years. She said, I am sorry. I held that sentence. I held it the way you hold something you have been waiting 11 years to receive and are not entirely sure you are receiving correctly. I said, I know you are. I said, we have a lot of work to do. She said, I know. I said, but we can do it. She looked at me with her father's eyes. She said, can we? I said, I am here, aren't I? She walked back into the reception. I stayed near the gate for a few minutes. Lily came and found me. She stood next to me without saying anything for a while. Then she said, are you okay? I said, I think so. She said, what happened? I said, she said she was sorry. Lily nodded. She said, she's been sorry for a while. She just didn't know how to say it when you were dead. I laughed. Not a lot, but a real laugh. Lily took my hand and we walked back into the garden. I sat at a table near the back. I ate the meal that had not been planned for me. I watched Ryan dance with his new wife, and I watched Patricia from across the room, and I watched Caleb, who had known I was alive all along and had not told his children and who caught my eye once, across the room and looked at the table, and I thought about what it means to be complicit in a lie by silence, and I decided that was a conversation for another day. The week Patricia asked for became 10 days. On the 11th day, she called me. It was the first time Patricia had called me in 7 years. Second ring. I picked up. She said she had told Ryan. She said it had taken 2 hours and he had not spoken to her for 3 days afterward. She said he had cried in a way she had not seen him cry since he was very young, and that his anger had been very precise, not explosive but cold, the specific cold of someone who was revising everything they thought they knew about a significant period of their life. She said he wanted to call me. I said, "Give him my number." He called the next evening. He said, "I have your eyes." I said, "You do." He said, "Lily told me you noticed at the wedding." I said, "It was hard to miss." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "She told me you came to my wedding." I said, "I sat in the last row." He said, "I walked right past you." I said, "Yes." He said, "I didn't know." I said, "I know you didn't know." He said, "I know you didn't know." He said, "I want to know you now." And I held the phone and I looked at the wall of my spare room where I had been running my bookkeeping practice for 20 years. The wall I had looked at every day of the years I had been dead, and I thought about his grandmother's chair at the kitchen table, and the checkers and the cookies and the reading lamp at the specific angle and the stories I had read to Lily when she was small, and I thought about all the ordinary Sunday afternoons that had not happened. I said, "I want to know you too." I said, "We have time." He said, "Do we?" I said, "I'm 67. I said, "My mother lived to 91. He laughed, his father's laugh, full and sudden, the laugh of a man who laughs with his whole chest. I had never heard it before. I heard it for the first time when he was 23 years old, newly married, sitting somewhere on a phone call with the grandmother who had been dead for 11 years. I heard it and I thought, there it is. There is the thing that was taken. There is the 11 years of that laugh that I missed. There it is. I do not have a clean resolution to offer you. Patricia and I are not repaired. We are in the early, careful, honest work of repair, which is not the same thing and which requires more of both of us than the repair of something less broken would. We have met twice since the wedding, both times difficult, both times honest in ways our relationship has not been honest in a very long time. She is in therapy. I am not, though I have thought about it and I may. Ryan has come for dinner once. He brought his wife, whose name I know now and whose laugh I have heard, and who looked at me with the specific, careful warmth of someone who has heard a complicated story about the woman across the table and has decided to begin without judgment. He stayed 4 hours. He helped me with the dishes. He asked about Gerald, his grandfather, whom he barely remembers. I told him about Gerald for a long time. I showed him the photograph of Gerald at the hardware store. He looked at it for a while, and then he put it down and said, "I have his nose." I said, "You do." He said, "I wish I had known." I said, "Me too." Lily and I have dinner every other week. She is studying to be a social worker, which I find both unsurprising and perfect. She is going to be very good at it. She has the directness and the steadiness and the willingness to sit in the middle of complicated things without needing them to resolve before she is ready. She has her grandmother's eyes. I want to say one thing to whoever is watching this who has been estranged from someone they love. Whether you are the one who left, or the one who was laughed, or the one who was told a story about the person that was not true. 7 years is a long time. 11 years is a longer one. But they are not the whole of a life. They are a portion that costs what it costs and cannot be returned, but also does not have to be the final word. Patricia looked at me across a gate at the edge of a garden at her son's wedding, and she said, "I know it was wrong." And I believed her. Not because I had forgiven everything, not because the 11 years had been undone, because she said it without her jaw set, because she said it without the performance of saying it, because she said it the way my daughter says things when she actually means them, which is the same way I say things when I actually mean them, which is directly and without softening and with full eye contact. She meant it, and I am choosing, carefully and with full awareness of the risk, to begin from there. I am 67 years old. I have a grandson who has his grandfather's laugh. I have a granddaughter who found me. I have a daughter who said I know it was wrong without her jaw set. I am alive. I am not done. Thank you for being here until the very end. If this story reached somewhere real in you, leave it in the comments. Tell me what you are holding. Tell me about the estrangement. Tell me about the version of your family that exists, and the version that was possible. I read every single one. And if you know someone who has been dead to their family, send them this. Because sometimes the person in the last row at the wedding is waiting for someone to look twice. Look twice. I will see you next time.